stole about $1,200 worth of tools, 33 prior criminal convictions, again in front of the court saying, changed man.
That I'm not the person I was 4 years ago.
But you committed a crime. You can't just go, oops, sorry, let's wipe it out. Treatment is not a get out of jail free card. Your one more chances have run out.
This defendant has been given many chances to change his thieving ways. He's on his 33rd conviction, most of them within the last 10 years. Every one of those chances left skid marks on the bowl. The problem is that he's a master manipulator. He's been in and out of programs for years, and he always gets glowing reviews, but his convictions speak for themselves. How many chances does a guy get before compassion becomes complicity? He's about to find out, and Judge Mogen is going to be the one to tell him. Let's roll, nerds.
We will go on the record in the matter 20 CF 241, State of Wisconsin versus Anthony Domeyer. The state appears through District Attorney Kevin Schmidt in person. We have Mr. Domeyer in person in custody with counsel Michelle Erdman. We're set today in this matter for the sentencing portion of this case. Mr. Domeyer was previously sentenced to his possession of methamphetamine and felony bail jumping. He then was placed on probation for for 4 years with an imposed but stayed sentence. He entered into a deferred judgment of conviction for the charge of intent to deliver amphetamines greater than 10 but less than 50 grams. That deferred judgment of conviction was revoked due to additional criminal convictions in Washington County, Minnesota, as well as Scott County, Minnesota. And he was currently sitting in Wright County, Minnesota jail at the time of the motion being filed by the state. We're here again for that sentencing portion. Before we begin, Ms. Erdman or Mr. Schmidt, somebody, can you update me as to whether or not he was actually revoked off of his probation? And is he sitting his imposed but stayed sentence for the methamphetamine felony bail?
I asked DOC other questions and they never told me he was, and I've never gotten an indication that they have. I haven't specifically asked them.
Okay.
What I have is every month they send me a list of everyone they revoke, and he's never been sent as one of those people.
All right, because I've looked in my entire file and I cannot find any revocation order or notice from Department of Corrections. Okay, all right. For the record, also, Ms. Erdman, I do have 2, 4, 5, 6 letters of support that have been filed on behalf of Mr. Domeyer. I have reviewed all of those, and Mr. Schmidt, you should have access to those as well, and you should have had the ability to review them.
I did.
Okay.
Ms. Erdman actually sent them to me previously.
Thank you. Argument and sentencing recommendation, Mr. Schmidt.
I have to start with this hearing, even though this is the original sentencing, this is not a sentencing after Rev. We have to talk about the original sentencing several years ago. This case was an exercise of the court engaging in leniency, not just with the DJOC, but with not sending him to immediate jail or prison on the methamphetamine or the other charge that he was convicted of at the time. A big impetus of that is, if the court recalls, Mr. Domeyer at the time was an adult teen challenge. He actually had a caseworker testify on his behalf, essentially. I remember that quite well. She indicated she thought Mr. Domeyer is different from many of the other people who do the program. He's not faking it. He really means it. And that she definitely believed he changed his life. I think that was probably pretty impactful for the court when that happened. Subsequent documentation I got from Wisconsin DOC indicates he did complete that adult teen challenge and went from July 16th of 2021 to July 29th of 2022. He was in the program when he pled out, the court recalls. That's why he was by video. The basis of revoking the DJOC is new crime. Technically, that case is still open. It's Wright County 86 CR 243623. He entered a guilty plea in that case to a felony theft on December 18th, 2024. He didn't appear at the sentencing hearing in June because he was in our jail on our warrant. Our warrant caused his non-appearance. Prior to that, he did have other missed court appearances in November of 24 and August of 24. That warrant was quashed October 3rd, and he's set for sentencing on November 25th. According to the plea documents, Minnesota is going to be arguing for 21 to 28 months commitment to the Department of Corrections. He and his attorney are going to argue for a downward departure. To give the court an idea of some of that complaint, since this was a default kind of case, the court didn't hear the evidence. That complaint indicated that Mr. Domeyer stole about $1,200 worth of tools from a tool store. He was identified from surveillance footage and visual identification. The first contact with police was over the phone. He indicated he couldn't have done the theft because he was working on his car during it. He then called the police officer back a few days later and asked if he could pay for the value of the tools if the officer could just make this all go away. When the officer said no and indicated, if you just give the tools back, I'll just note your cooperation in my referral. He then said he doesn't know anything about the tools. He has since pled guilty on that. That happened in June of 2024. I bring that up for a reason, and it has to do with Mr. Domeyer's criminal history. Mr. Domeyer has 33 prior criminal convictions at the age of 50. 18 of them, including that one, are related to thievery. The basis of revoking the DJOC is another offense of thievery. 7 of those 33 convictions are possession related, meaning they're drug related. And 23 of those 33 all happened within the last 10 years, meaning most of his criminal history has happened between the age of 40 and 50. That is, it's ratcheted up over time. I bring that up because when you have a person with a history of dishonesty crimes, these forgeries, these thefts, these theft by swindling convictions in Minnesota, it raises questions of their honesty and their ability to manipulate. That's been a big concern of mine in these, in particular, because once again, we have a flood of letters from service providers saying, get him treatment. He's in treatment now. He's the greatest we've had. And this is only just a couple years after he did Adult Teen Challenge, where we were hearing the same thing. And yet he's repeating the same behaviors it's supposed to prevent. One thing to note as well is the treatment he's been doing now has not really been voluntary. According to documents he submitted on a different criminal traffic matter that he had in 2024, he was originally on bond and in jail, and then part of his bail motion to get out was to go do this treatment. So to the extent it's voluntary in that, you know, it's not court ordered, I think that's true, but it is something that he used to convince a court to let him out of jail to begin with. So to that extent, it's iffy how voluntary it's been. It's iffy whether he was addressing his own issues to better himself and not just to get a better outcome on criminal cases. That brings us back to what the actual facts of this case is. This is a drug dealing case, 25 grams of meth that he had with Edward Albrecht. The court did a state and imposed sentence with probation on the felony bail jump and the meth. The prison portion of those state and imposed sentences were 1.5 years on the meth and 2 years on the bail jump, concurrent to each other if he's revoked. I think it would depreciate the seriousness of the offense of the drug dealing if the court did less than that. If the court did less than 2 years, the court said the felony bail jumping was more serious than the drug dealing conviction. I think that given he's continued to have these offenses in Minnesota while on supervision with Minnesota for our offenses, that's probably why you're not getting anything from Wisconsin, because Minnesota is supervising him on the Wisconsin cases in Minnesota. He's continued to offend with victim creating acts. His explanation for why he should get a reduced sentence or why he should get leniency is him doing treatment and him doing well on it, which is exactly the same thing we had in 2022. What that says to me is he really needs treatment in a confined setting, because the treatment he did in Adult Teen Challenge, it didn't work. Adult Teen Challenge is a very thorough locked area kind of program in Minnesota. He was there for a whole year, and then after getting out, he's reoffending again. I think we have an obligation to protect the community from victim crimes, not just the thievery ones, but drug dealing creates victims as well. It addicts people to drugs. It funds terrible things south of the border. I think the court, for a sentence that it should do in this case, the court should do a sentence of 4 in, 3 out imposed, as in it shouldn't stay that on probation. I think that that's appropriate here in particular because of how aggravating the criminal history is, how poorly adjustment after completing adult teen challenge has been when he was at sentencing to now. And it feels like we're still just back in 2022. He's again in front of the court saying, I'm a changed man. Listen to all my treatment people. I'm doing great. They all think I'm doing great. It's concerning to me that a person with so many convictions for crimes of dishonesty, these like thievery style offenses, is coming to court over and over, getting low sentences with trained treatment professionals saying he's different. He's telling the truth. He's a changed man. What that says to me is Mr. Domeyer is probably very capable of manipulation, that he's been capable of accumulating 23 convictions in 10 years and is still out and about, because that indicates a lot of different courts have been convinced by Mr. Domeyer that he's capable of being rehabilitated safely in the community, that's even been possible. Because otherwise, after so many convictions, you'd think a court would say, enough is enough. At a certain point, you need incapacitation. At a certain point, you need specific deterrence to the individual. And clearly that has not been happening when we see the rare reversal of what, science tells us with crime, that it's supposed to drop off as a person ages. And that curve is just totally inverted in this case, the acceleration as he gets older. I find his past convictions and the similarity between the treatment provider statements from 22 to now deeply concerning to me for that reason. I think that treatment in a confined setting is the only way to do it. And in fact, the fact that he completed adult teen challenge successfully for a year back in 2022 is probably indicative of that, because that's what that is. Minnesota is able to do treatment in a confined setting at adult teen challenge, whereas Wisconsin doesn't have a program like that. It has to happen in the prison system. I think this is the only way to protect the community and not depreciate the seriousness of the offense. I'd ask the court to follow this recommendation to protect Wisconsin and Minnesota from the convictions that'll happen again beyond the 33 so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Erdman?
Judge, thank you. Mr. Domeyer is asking the court to consider a 3-year probationary term. The basis for that is, as outlined in the numerous letters that he's submitted, in checking in with him kind of since he's been in custody, it sounds as though things really were going well for him for a period of time. And then he experienced some homelessness. He did get a couple, I think it was 3 referrals to facilities that could help house him, and was kind of rebuilding again, getting back on the path when then he was taken into custody. He has been following through with his probation supervision. They are checking in weekly with him. He's been doing, I guess, he relies on, I think, the support of probation. And so to continue to extend probation would give him those resources within the community to continue to be successful. I believe when speaking with him, he admits that he did relapse and that he's sorry for that. And it sounds as though some of it was stress from the situation in terms of his housing instability and his the situation that way. He did bring a letter to the court. It's from a bankruptcy and Social Security attorney, and it says that your Social Security disability claim, they informed us your claim is still pending for a decision. I think that being incarcerated has disrupted his benefits, and there's problems with that. I see he's got a pretty lengthy letter, Your Honor, and I know he's been very articulate in terms of kind of his position as to why. But I think overall, he's just aware that this type of charge is not insignificant and is certainly feeling nervous, anxious about the outcome. So to me, that does demonstrate that I think he's appreciates the wrongness of his conduct. And we would just ask the court to consider that probationary term.
Thank you. Mr. Domeyer, I'm now going to give you an opportunity to tell me anything that you want me to know. You don't have to, but
Yes, I
it's
would
your
like
only
to.
time. If you're going to,
Wrote kind of a letter,
if you're going to read,
everything out.
if you're going to read something, read it slowly and articulate so that my court reporter can take it all down. Okay?
Okay. Tell me when I'm ready to go, ma'am.
Right now.
Thank you. Your Honor, I just wanted to tell the courts I'm sorry and I screwed up. Instead of digging myself a deeper and deeper hole, I corrected myself and didn't like the path I was going down. It wasn't good. I ended up relapsing in 2024 and losing my job and my place to live at the sober house I've been at since I graduated from Teen Challenge and everything I owned. It wasn't that I didn't try or anything, but how it all started is my hours were cut back to 2 days per week at Casey's gas station as a cook. I couldn't take orders over the phone due to my hearing. I even went to Masterson Temp Service in Cambridge, where they sent me out to 4 different places. And if all 4 places sent me back to the temp service due to my hearing impairment. The temp service told me they wouldn't send me out anymore to no more jobs. So losing my job, my place to live, my truck ended up getting stolen as I was living out of it, as me and my girl friend's belongings were all gone and weren't getting replaced due to my insurance had lapsed. And they found my truck, it was totaled out. I lost everything. And the impound fee, and I couldn't afford it, so I lost the truck too and all of our belongings that we owned. I was ended up giving a car and lost my license due to no insurance and ended up losing the car and everything we owned again for driving after revocation. That's when I told my PO everything at my next probation visit. I couldn't take any more of this homelessness. Me and my girlfriend almost froze to death at staying outside in a shed at a friend's house. Luckily, came home and seen the light on in the shed and wondered who was in there and came to the rescue. I couldn't call him due to our phones were both dead and we were trying to stay warm. While waiting for a bed and treatment to open up in New Way Treatment Center, I applied for Social Security, disability, emergency assistance, cash assistance, and food stamps. I was denied everything from Washington County besides food stamps and sent us to the homeless shelter. I even had to hire a lawyer for my Social Security disability, but it could take up to 2 years for Social Security disability to get approved. I have the letter from them saying that I applied. So as the Social Security appeal is in the appeal stage with no money and $200 in food stamps, a bed finally opened up at New Way Treatment Center. I put myself into inpatient treatment where my life started to turn back around. I could see out of the hole that I dug myself into. I began a new path of sobriety with the help of my PO and then New Way. I was connected again to a sober network of people, again attending 2 meetings per week at Maplewood, Alano, AA and NA 12-step meeting, and volunteering my time at Maplewood Food Shelf on Saturdays and serving food on Sundays at the church at a free meal at the Salvation Army. I felt good about myself again by helping rebuild my community by volunteering my time. I even helped 3 people get sober from meetings and got them into New Way treatment and enjoy helping other addicts get sober. I was even working with the housing company and in February applied for Section 8 housing for disabled people and put on a waiting list. I was told upon my completion to treatment, I would be moved to the top of the list, and for the first time in over 10 years, I would have my own apartment. Me and my girlfriend were super excited and waiting. Hopefully it should be still available, so I'm asking the courts and the judge for mercy and grace, and to see that I'm not the person I was 4 years ago, and be restructured back to probation and given a second chance again. To continue giving back to our community and helping people by volunteering my time. I still have 3 referrals pending for treatment. Also, my dad has moved back to Minnesota. He's in an old folks home in North St. Paul. He's 85 years old, and I found out he isn't doing well. Honestly, I would like to spend what little bit of time of life he has left by giving him my time and helping him and spending time with my 2 grandkids. Please have mercy on me, not sending me to prison. There's so much more to life, more than prison.
Mr. Dolmeyer, you had a girlfriend at this time. Was she not employed?
Yeah, me and my girlfriend were together.
Did she have a job?
No,
Why not?
she's never had a job. I always took care of her.
Doesn't make
I
sense.
could barely take care of myself, let alone, but I couldn't have the heart to tell her to beat it.
Reed, you rather live in a shed in the winter or in your truck than say, hey, girlfriend, get a job. We need your support right now.
That's when I couldn't take it anymore. And I went and told my PO everything, from the theft, from the relapse. And that's why they didn't violate me, because I told them everything. I was checking in weekly. Even though I was homeless, I was still checking in with them, having appointments, passing all my UAs, everything.
How long was your relapse?
How long was my relapse? I think it was about 2 or 3 months. No, 2 months from the time I got into treatment, because I was originally supposed to go back to Teen Challenge. But when I got there, they said I couldn't have my cell phone because that's how I have to hear. And they referred me to another treatment center where I had to wait for a bed to open up. And that's how long I had to wait for the bed to open up. So from like November, December, and then finally January, I got in. In November, I almost was staying in a shed, and finally came home and seeing that someone was out there, and he was in the house and stuff like that. So I'm lucky we didn't freeze to death. That's when I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I found a place for her to stay, and I went to treatment inpatient. So it was a real rough time, 2024. I don't ever want to go back through that again. Like I said, I'm sorry I screwed up.
I'm going to tell you, the issue is that you are here for a very serious crime. But for the fact that you committed this theft, which is a big deal in Minnesota, you would still have this possession with intent amphetamine, the dealing case. It would still be like in the air. But for the fact that you committed that serious theft in Minnesota, the state wanted to revoke you off of that agreement. And I can completely understand why. And I'm going to tell you, I know I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, but Minnesota's probation, I'm not too confident with. They're not great. They say they put people on probation for 5 years or 20 years or 30 years, and there's not really much oversight. You were convicted with an imposed and stayed sentence in the meth as well as the felony probation. And you were convicted of a serious felony in which you may be looking at prison for up to 28 months, which is over 2 years in that Minnesota case. Yet Minnesota probation isn't looking at revoking you for my Wisconsin sentence. That's silly to me.
They gave me a downward departure for the Wright County, the 28-month sentence, and had me go to treatment. That was
Not sentenced yet on that. They're looking at 21 to 28 months of prison.
That was the plea deal that I took for Wright County. A downward departure to treatment.
Okay, well, you don't know what it's going to be yet because you're not sentenced yet. And again, you're adding fuel to the fire with my concern with Minnesota probation. It's like, I looked, and I'm going to tell you, I re-pulled your PSI when I originally sentenced you. I re-pulled that to reread that information about your history. And I had the same concerns that Mr. Schmidt did in his argument. I'm looking at, well, there's a possession of methamphetamine, okay, in Barron County. But other than that, forgery, theft, of movable property, forgery, theft, identity theft, forgery, possession or sale of stolen counterfeit checks, theft, transfer movable property, theft, false representation, and then a possession of a pistol. I read the facts of that being found. DUI, then drugs, and criminal damage to property. When I reread this PSI from your sentencing back in 2021, or when was your sentencing? 2022. I reread these facts, and it's like theft. I had to support my habit. Forgery. I had to support my habit. Forgery. I had to support my habit. And then again, history's repeating itself. You relapsed. Theft of $1,200 in tools, where I commend you for trying to go to the officer and saying, hey, I'll pay for the tools. I don't want this to affect me. But you committed a crime. You can't just go, I'm committing this huge crime and oops, sorry, here you go, let's wipe it out. Perhaps that could have been a result if you didn't have 33 or so convictions. And again, forgery, theft, counterfeit checks, theft of movable property, sale of movable property after theft. They're serious. You have a serious criminal history here. And you're here on my cases in this county, the county that I oversee, with serious criminal convictions. And I'm supposed to rely on Minnesota to make sure that you are being supervised and or being punished. Because again, when I'm reading this PSI, it goes back to the same thing. There was a page here that said, where was it? Page 19 of the PSI, 19 out of 28. Agent's comments. The defendant believes he is finally getting the long-term substance use treatment he has been needing and is confident that he will be successful. Unlike previous attempts at sobriety, he is receiving help with housing and employment. And as argued by Mr. Schmidt, that's appearing what your history is. You get into trouble, you say, pull up the white flag, treatment, I'll go to treatment, downward discharge me, or whatever you said that was. You can't. Treatment is not a get out of jail or prison free card. It's just not. There has to come a point when you actually go, ding, 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 the treatment really is working. Yes, I have hard times, but I'm not going to go back to my old path. I'm not going to go back to my old ways and use methamphetamine and steal and take things that aren't mine because I'm in this downward spot. There comes a point, and I understand, I do understand your disability. And I get that it is a huge barrier for you with many, many jobs and many, many things. But you were born in 1975. All right. So you're
75.
Yeah. So you're 50 years old. It's at that time where you need to have figured something else out. As Mr. Schmidt again has pointed out, I don't know if your disability is getting worse and worse and worse, where it's becoming a bigger barrier. But in the last 10 years, these are the crimes. 23 or so out of 33 happened in the last 10 years. And I think I'm recalling correctly that you didn't start using methamphetamine until you were around the age of 27. Yes, on page 20, you began using methamphetamine at age 27. So over 20 years, you have been using methamphetamine. Over 20 years. Over the course of this time, you have been to, I can't even say how many treatment facilities or treatment centers. You started or you did one in 2018. You've done it again a little bit later than that. And the issue with looking at your criminal history, and again, back to my issue with Minnesota, is you have these serious crimes and they put you on probation for a period of 5 years, which I don't know how often you really are overseen, with 5 years of prison stayed. I don't know if you're ever revoked on that, but I'm going to tell you, if you haven't been revoked and you haven't been sent back to prison, you haven't been punished for your crimes. Mr. Schmidt, Ms. Erdman, do you know if he was revoked on those? And I'm looking at the 2018, 2019 crimes in which he had prison stayed and he was on probation.
He hasn't been.
He hasn't been.
To my knowledge, I don't think so.
And I don't think so either. Otherwise, it would have said in my document from back here, or I could have gotten an update, and you haven't been revoked on my sentence from 2022 without having some form of punishment. There hasn't been any real incentive for you to turn your life around. Because if you continue to get that downward deviation from Minnesota, oh, that's okay, let's do more treatment. Okay, let's do more treatment. Okay, let's do more treatment. Or let's test and let's do this. You continue to wreak havoc on the community and you're not getting any punishment for your crimes. If you don't get punishment for your crimes, how will you stop to engage and commit these crimes? Because it hasn't stopped yet. You've had a lot hanging over your head, and yet you fell back on hard times. And instead of then reaching out immediately to your PO, your probation officer, to say, I need help, I need to do something. I'm not able to get a job at the temp agency. I'm falling back with relapse. Instead of reaching out to your PO right away, you just relapsed and you were there for 2-3 months until you were freezing in a shed. And then you said, I can't do this anymore. So then you reached out to your PO. I do give you kudos for reaching out finally, but you didn't stop it. You didn't have enough tools in your basket. And you should have, because you've went to treatment numerous times. You should have had those tools in your basket to know, okay, I can't go down this road again. I can't harm anyone else, which you did. You took the tools. And I can't, if I could just have my original sentence, if I knew you were revoked and you were sitting that time and you were being punished on those, then perhaps there could be a different outcome or oversight with this far more serious crime. I don't trust Minnesota. I don't trust that there's going to be punishment. There can't continue to be all of this punishment just hanging out there of, just in case we'll give you one more chance. Just in case we'll give you one more chance. Just in case we'll give you one more chance. Your one more chances have run out, or they need to run out, because otherwise this is the continuous defect in the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is not there for drug treatment or treatment intervention. That's a side of it. That's a service and a help with that. But it's not there to be a treatment facility. It's there to try and stop recidivism, and that there's more than just going to treatment. There's criminal thinking and understanding your criminal thinking, There's understanding what to do when you are relapsing. There's understanding that you have more services and places to reach out. There's punishment. There's making a victim whole. There's trying to stop the fact of a person continuing to do the same conduct and behavior, the same crimes over and over and over again. And that's what I'm seeing. Again, the forgery, the theft, the forgery, the theft, identity theft, the forgery, the forfeit, the receiving and selling stolen counterfeit property or counterfeit checks, the theft. Again, if I could just make sure that my underlying sentence was revoked and you'd be sitting that lesser time, there could be some other alternative to this sentence. I can't. I don't know that. Minnesota probation is just kind of sitting and going, maybe. And I don't have any good indication that if you were out on probation again, you would have the oversight, you would stop engaging in the theft. Because if you're going to continue to engage in the theft and do those types of things, there's nothing that tells me that you're not going to engage in intent to delivery methamphetamine again or other drugs again to support your habit. There's not. And I have read those numerous letters, and I think that that's great. That's great that when you are there in your treatment, you are doing excellent. When you are participating in using your resources and understanding the services that you've learned, you are doing great. But when you're not in that place, you have no one but yourself to try and circumvent the crime. And you haven't proven that you're able to do that either. $1,200 in tools is a lot of tools. And I don't know the facts behind that day in that theft, but it's a lot of tools to take. So with regards to this case, it's not a probationary case because obviously my probation did not work with my last sentence. So with the possession of intent amphetamine greater than 10, less than 50 grams, I'm not completely following the recommendation of the state, but I am going to sentence you to 3 years in and 3 years out. 3 years initial confinement and 3 years of extended supervision. I think anything less would unduly depreciate the seriousness of this crime, as well as the other crimes that you were convicted of in Burnett County. $518 in fines and fees. As to possession of THC and drug paraphernalia that was deferred with the agreement, are you dismissing them?
Yes.
Dismiss and read in counts 4 and 5. Because of the seriousness of this crime, I want to say that it's consecutive to any other sentence. However, I'm not going to do that because I want to give you a benefit for going to the treatment and for making those changes. So it can be concurrent to your other sentences. And I will permit you to be engaged in the substance abuse programming. Give you one more shot, and that would be in a prison sentence or setting. How many days does he have credit for?
Judge, according to the judgment of conviction, I saw 295 days. And then I believe he was brought here from Minnesota after some work there. And so being that it's concurrent, I guess I would have to look at what was there. But from the time he was brought here on May 30th, 2025 until today, it's another 130 days.
So hopefully you can get into the treatment quickly. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to engage in that. 325 days jail credit.
425.
425 jail credit. Same conditions as your previous sentence. Absolute sobriety, no use or possession of illegal drugs, substances, or paraphernalia, no alcohol, no bars, taverns, liquor stores, beer tents, anything that has the primary purpose for the sale or the service of alcohol, regular drug testing, gainful employment. I am going to order a Thinking for a Change or Breaking Barriers, a criminal thinking program that you must successfully complete. And then after you are released, you will be overseen by Minnesota again for whatever probation you're still on. But it looks like you're on probation still for 7 other crimes with 7 other different types of sentences, which have prison or don't have prison. Minnesota can do what they want to do with their cases. This is your Wisconsin case. You have 20 days to appeal. Should you fail to appeal within 20 days, you do lose that right. Failing to pay your fines and fees not only means a civil judgment will be entered against you because you're always going to owe it, but a warrant could be issued. You could sit up to 6 months in jail. Mr. Schmidt, what am I missing?
Just to make the record complete, when the court asked us during the sentence if he had had any probation violations in the meantime, the last time he's had a probation violation filed with the court in Minnesota was in 2021. It was actually for this case. Minnesota DOC abandoned it and dismissed it because they thought the credit he accumulated here was enough punishment. That's all.
All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. No firearm for life and no voting in any election until your civil rights are restored. Ms. Erdman, anything you see that the court is missing?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.